over the last couple of days, I've been doing some videos on conscription. And conscription, why is it coming into the public eye? So I did one on NATO Chief Defence Staff from Holland and another from Sir Patrick Sanders. And then again, today, another two have come out in the Daily Mail. And it's quite interesting because this MP says, Nanu Akua, teenagers of Britain, your country needs you. It's time to bring back compulsory national service as we face enemies determined to destroy our way of life and a knife crime epidemic. Well, the first thing is that this way of life that we're here to defend, are these people willing to defend it? So, you know, if I can't get a house and I'm enslaved to the system and I'm enslaved to a bank and I've got to pay for education that I have to tax, and then you use that to go and kill people in other countries that send refugees to mine, which creates terrorism. Is that what I want? Am I pro LGBTQ? Am I pro confusing children at school with their sexuality? Am I pro the National Health Service? Am I pro schooling? Am I pro teaching children stuff that they don't need to learn, stuff that confuses them, stuff that makes them think that they're educated when they're not, and then suddenly stop the education, send them out in the world and not allow them enough money to get a house or to make savings? Is that a way of life that I want to protect? Do I want to protect England from an invading force? That might do a lot of harm. Yes, I do. But if an invading force actually did better for England, it might be worth it. Do I think Russia will be better? No, I don't. I think Russia will be very bad. I think any invading force would be bad. But then again, ideologies are invading forces, aren't they? Communism, capitalism, fascism, those are invading invisible forces that we welcome into our country. It's just physical forces that we don't want to have. So there's a contradiction in ideology going on there as well. And so what this idea is that they're saying, you know, conscription is good. You can see the subtle seeds being seminated at the moment, the subtle seeds being seminated. And of course they go, we need conscription. It's good for young people. Young people are lost. Well, how did they become lost? Well, they were lost because the government, society, schooling, their parents. Why their parents? Because their parents aren't at home. Their parents are working. Why are the parents working? Because you need to have two parents working to bring up a child. The school is now becoming the parent. What's the school doing? It's indoctrinating them, putting funny things into their heads. The children are upset. They're bored. Because if there was real culture, there is culture in England, but is it real culture? Is it English culture? And culture can be taken up from different places in the world. So, for instance, I love Indian culture, I love Chinese culture, I love Jamaican culture. These are all things that enrich British culture or English culture. These are things that we can have in our culture, and we should have more. When Van Gogh met Japanese art, his art flourished. When Picasso met African art, his art flourished. When European art met other European art, their art flourished. When you have different cultures coming together freely, it works. When you have an invasion of another culture or an imposition of another culture, it doesn't work. And this is what the problem is. When you've got people, when you've got refugees in your country which are being put up in hotels, and you've got veterans which are on the street and they're homeless, that is not fair. And that is what makes people angry. And the government and the politicians do not get it. They don't understand what's going on. You can't get that across to them. So across Britain, so what they're going to do to introduce conscription, and they're not calling it conscription. They've got other strange names, and David Cameron was trying to introduce it in a very subtle way. But let's have a look. Across Britain, recorded offences involving a blade are up 76%. Scare factor, fear. The 12 months to March, 99 people under the age of 25 were murdered with a knife. Well, how many were murdered with syringes or at home or with batons or guns? We don't know. So they're just putting the figure out, and there's no context. So it's a scare factor. So what they're going to do is they're going to say conscription is good for children or for young people because it shapes them up. It makes them tough. It makes them strong. It gives them drive. It puts them in the right way. Look. Conscription, when you go into the army, what does the army do? It teaches you survival, it teaches you independence, it teaches you how to camp, it teaches you how to cook, it teaches you discipline, it teaches you how to clean up. You don't need to go and be a conscript in order to learn those things. You should learn those things anyway. That's why the scouts are there. That's why camping's there. That's why hunting's there. Go out. That's our culture. That's our heritage. When the Vikings came over, they were a seafaring nation. They knew how to tie knots. They knew how to live on a boat. They knew how to camp. They knew how to hunt. They knew how to fish. They weren't conscripts. They just knew how to do it because it was culture. It was part of their lifestyle. So when we have culture today, what's culture today? It's just looking on a phone. It's doing nothing. It negates. It obfuscates life. So we need to have life injected into our lives. Not that we need to go and force people into a conscription in order to learn how to fight a war which has been caused by governments and politicians that make lots of money from it. No. So this is backwards. If the children are messed up, you don't go and teach them how to kill or prepare them to kill and entering into a war to solve a problem. If the children are screwed up, you solve that problem. Now, there might be some solutions in conscription, and conscription therefore might be seen as benevolent for them because it shapes them up and makes them strong. But the whole idea of conscription, forcing somebody to do something, to go and kill, to fight. The people in Russia believe they're correct. The people in England believe they're correct. The people in South Africa believe they're correct. Not everyone can be correct, but correctness depends on the country that you're in, not on truth. So when you're signing up to conscription to serve your country, you're told that your country is correct, but there's other 10 corrects as well. There's Korea, Taiwan, China, Philippines, Netherlands, Russia, South Africa, India, Pakistan, Iran, Syria, Iraq, Ukraine, United States, South America. All of these people have different ideas of what correct is. So if you have to brainwash your people to make them think that the government is correct, which is voicing this ideology of being correct, and then they make you feel guilty if you do not do it for your country. But what happens if your country's wrong? Do we not say, well, the people doing conscription in other countries for their country, for their nationality, they must be wrong because they have a wrong ideology? And they're all saying the same thing about us. We must be having a wrong ideology, a bad ideology, because we are preparing for war and we are preparing for ideas and we're preparing. So it's not about truth. It's about ideas. It's about enforcing our ideas to live on because we believe those ideas to be correct. But who believes those ideas to be correct? Many people in England don't believe that. There are many people from other countries and other cultures that don't believe in British culture. And there are many people that call themselves British culture, which got their underpants with the St. George's Cross, drink lots of ale and fight at football matches. You know, what is real English culture? What is it? Is it tea? Is it post office? Is it the Queen? Lots of people don't want the Queen. They don't believe in monarchy. They're anti-monarchy. Is it to believe in the Prime Minister and the politics? But, you know, you've got Keith Vaz having sex with cocaine with underage, well, sorry, not underage, with very young male prostitutes. Nusrat Ghani, you know, you write to Nusrat Ghani to say, look, you know, people, your husband is putting pressure onto people in order not to comply with the police. You know, why should I go and fight for that? Why doesn't she go and fight? Why doesn't she get her husband to go and do that? Her husband, maybe he's a coward, stabs people in the back. So it becomes very difficult, you know, to sort of say, well, conscription is good, because what is conscription and what are you conscripting for? So the seeds that are being planted in 2015, Norway became the first NATO member and the first European country to introduce compulsory military service for both men and women. Neighbouring Sweden followed in 2018. So in the last 6 years, other countries have enforced conscription. Now, they've got very low populations and they're very close to Russia. So there's this thing about the Nordic model, which is now being pushed, okay? They could learn the basic principles of discipline and hard work, which our society and schools are failing. Why do you need to conscript them? Why don't you sort the society out? And why don't you sort the schools out? You know, what happens when conscription doesn't work? Why are you hoping that something else will work? Why don't you go to the problem and sort the problem out? Yeah, sort the fathers out, sort the food out, sort the parents out, sort the rent out, sort the jobs out. Yeah, instead of saying, well, we'll just wait until they're 18 and we'll let them go and be idiots until they're 18 and then we'll sort them out. No, sort them out at the beginning. Sort the schools out. You know, oh, the school doesn't work. We all pay taxes for school, so why doesn't the school work? They would also learn to respect authority. Just a minute, hold on. What authority? You mean the authority in Thatcher's government, John Major's government, Edwina Curry's government that supported paedophilia, that made Sir Jimmy Savile a Sir? That authority? You mean the police? You mean the police that sometimes are racist? You mean that authority? You mean the authority that Tony Blair took us to a war on a lie? You mean that authority? You mean the authority of teachers at school who are telling you that it's okay to go and give your male friend a thingy-majig and you're a man? You mean authority of the teachers that confuse the kids? You mean the implementation of confusion and all sorts of other ideologies with the LGBT community? You mean that authority? The authority of the parents that aren't at home because they're trying to create a buck in order to send their children to school because the society's been made that way now that both parents have to work. So what authority? Authority needs to be respected. You're not respecting authority, you're fearing authority, you're being pushed into the acceptance of authority. So that needs to be thought about. They can learn practical school skills and leadership, coordinating an emergency response such as mass evacuation. I completely agree. I think that would be fantastic. Knowledge of engineering, map reading, navigation. Well, that would be fantastic. I agree. But you don't need to be conscripted for that. And you should be learning that not at 18 or 21. You should be learning that at 5 or 6 in school. So instead of waiting 18 to get conscription to teach them, go and put it in school now. Not only would such a program go a long way to ironing out youth crime. Well, that's an assumption. Youth crime is done because they've got no purpose. They don't know what to do. You closed all of their youth things down and built houses. So, you know, you can't take youth things away from youth and then blame them. You have a responsibility. If you weren't going and fighting in wars, which you're preparing for another, how much is Yemen cost? How much did Ukraine cost? How much did Iraq, Sierra Leone, Bosnia? How much did all those wars cost? Perhaps if we hadn't gone to those wars and we had invested it in the youth, we wouldn't have a problem and we wouldn't be having a war with Russia and we wouldn't have crime in youth. Oh no, but we don't think that because we go to war on purpose, and that's to make money to control. And it's a sacrifice, it's a mass sacrifice. Here we go. Mass immigration into Britain all over the world has contributed to our increasingly fractured society, with certain communities refusing to integrate or buy into any sense of Britishness. Well, one of those is Islam, right? Malis alaikum. Islam. So Islam's interesting because it's a religion, and apparently it's the same God as the Christian God, which is apparently the same God as the Jewish God, but they all end up fighting. I don't think that it is the same God. I think they're all over the place. The problem with religion is that, you know, it is not British. Paganism, Wodan is British, right? The only reason we practice Christianity is because it was imported here and forced upon us, and there were lots of witch trials. So you killed the people. What the Christians did to Jesus and made him a hero, you did to the Wodans, you did to the pagans, you did to the witches, the people, the healers, the knowledge people, the people that understood the plants. You just killed them all. You said, okay, well, here's a plant that fixes the problem. Well, we'll kill you and we'll just ask Jesus to do it. Oh no, Jesus doesn't do it. We'll pray more. Let's beat ourselves a little bit more. So the true culture of England comes from the Druids. We are Anglo-Saxon. We are Britons. We are Jutes. Yeah, we are Celts, are we not? Or we are Vikings. Yeah. That's what we are. We are not Abrahamic religion. And that needs to be looked at, and that needs to be investigated. Why does an Abrahamic religion overpower the local tribe ideologies? And we just erased all the knowledge. And that's what they do. They erase your head in school and they erase the knowledge. I don't care what race, religion or ethnicity you are. If you enjoy the benefits of British citizenship, you should be willing to serve your nation. Okay, so what are the benefits of British citizenship? What are they? Paying taxes to kill people in other countries. What are they? An NHS. Yes, it's true. England is a much better country than a lot of other countries. Yes, it's true. But are the people happy? Yeah? Or could we do better? So I can't keep putting Britain down and rubbishing Britain. Britain's got some great things. But it's also based on an empire. So the British citizenship is that which was gotten from pillaging from pillaging other nations in the past, was it not? So when you say the benefits of British citizenship, are you saying the benefits of slavery or the benefits of stealing that diamond and putting it in the crown, or the benefits of piracy, taking the Spanish gold from the Incas and Latin America, or mining in South Africa, or the Suez Canal in Egypt? I mean, we are benefiting the benefits of British citizenship. It's loaded. That's really loaded. Where did it come from? And everyone says, oh yeah, but everyone did it to everyone else. Okay, so if I kill your mum, then you can kill my mum. And then, we can each kill each other's mums, because, you did it to me 100 years ago, so now I'll do it to you. No, there's a lot of poverty and a lot of problems in former colonial countries. And that needs to be addressed. It needs to be addressed. And because British people aren't part of the problem and the suffrage of others in other countries, they therefore forfeit that ideology. It's sort of, they give themselves permission to forget. Or they say, well, we had it hard, therefore they must have it hard. Yes, in Britain we did. In Britain we had 2 world wars. But we also had empires. And those empires held us up. The Indian Empire, African, lots of empires, lots of money coming in. So that's got to be looked at as well. I don't care what race or religion you are, okay. But the problem is that if you're going to go and fight Iran, which is Islam, and you're a Muslim and a British Muslim, then you're not going to do it, are you? Or if you're a Russian British person, you're not going to fight Russia, are you? Or Chinese British, or an Asian. How many Asians are supporting China? Because China's going to grow and they're all going to support China, aren't they? Just as everyone supports America because they want a piece of the pie. That hasn't been thought out either, right? It depends a lot on your race. It depends a lot on your race, because if you've had racism against you, therefore you might want a foreign country to come in because you might see that it's better. And there were lots of people in the Second World War that were in England that were spies and were spying on their own country and giving their own country up. And there's a lot of people in Russia that do the same thing. And there's a lot of people in America. How do you think Russia got the atom bomb? Because there were Americans that gave up secrets to the Russians. That's why. So it does depend. People, you think everyone's national. Well, nationality maybe is a brainwashing at this stage, because it's definitely not to do with culture. You're not defending your land. Most people rent. How are you defending your house or your garden or your fields? You're all renters. Nobody owns anything anymore. To serve your nation. Well, when's the nation going to serve me? I pay a lot of taxes. And money is being held by old families. So when is the nation going to serve me? You took my free university education away. The schools are terrible. When are you going to serve me? You keep taxing me. ULEZ, I want to support ULEZ. In his speech this week, head of the army, Sir Patrick Sanders, called for the government to mobilise the nation ahead of a likely war with Russia. So everybody's saying there's going to be a war with Russia. It's now coming out. His words come after Admiral Rob Bauer, a senior NATO official, called on the West to consider mobilisation, reservists and conscriptions. Those were the last 2 videos that I did. So if you look at the last 2 videos, you'll find that. What they're saying is that the army is now getting smaller and smaller and smaller. It's 74,000 today. They reckon in 2006 it's going to go down to 70,000, and it's the smallest since the Napoleonic Wars, which were 200 years ago. So 200 years ago, the British army was bigger, even though the population was smaller. So the army is struggling for recruits. Why is the army struggling for recruits? Because people don't want to join the army. People don't want to fight. People are getting fat. People are having friends in other countries. There's gamers online. There's people that gaming that are friends with people in other countries. Gamers speak English in order to get on with each other. There's Facebook messages going around. People speak, to each other. Israel, so now they're going back to conscription, and they're sort of trying to sell it again. Israel, meanwhile, successfully mobilized millions of troops last year in response to the threat from Hamas. Okay, except for the fact that Palestine is a country that no longer is a country. I don't like supporting Palestine. I don't like supporting Israel. I think both of them have behaved very badly. But Palestine is Palestine. It's a country, it should have its country. And Israel needs to have a country as well. And the problem is very, very difficult. But both have behaved quite badly. And it's just so political. This was the only possible because young men and women served 3 years respectively in the Israeli Defense Force. Similarly, in South Korea, all able-bodied men serve up to 2 years due to existential threat from the communist neighbors to the north, which is China. Which is North Korea. So what you do is you're going to start training people. You're going to start putting them into all sorts of services in order to get them to think in a particular way to kill other people, in order to further or protect your ideologies. So what are our ideologies? Closer to home, Swiss men between the ages of 18 and 34 serve for 21 weeks. But Switzerland's also got, I think, one of the highest suicide rates in the world. So it's obviously not helping that much. Estonia, which shares a land border with Russia, responded to Putin's invasion of Ukraine by mandating a year's defense education in schools to prepare teenagers for possible conscription. So, Switzerland's been conscripting for ages. So Estonia is, and then Israel is. So there's other countries. They're introducing this idea that there's other countries coming in. So now we're playing catch up with national service. So this woman, she's never done national service, so she doesn't know what it is. Now, that was put in the newspapers today. Then there's another article which is in the newspaper today as well. Is Britain ready for Third World War? Okay. Again, now, Brits might have to sign up for national service until the age of 60, which means that I might have to go now to serve a Finnish-style conscription army. Okay. So what's happened is that they've been looking at Ukraine. And they've said, okay, so now we can see how civilians can go into a military role, because England was training Ukrainian civilians, from what I understand. And so they're sort of understanding how military now trains civilians into these roles. Britain has come to think carefully about conscription, hundreds, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, again, anti-Putin, citizens' army. So these new words are now entering into the vocabulary. Citizens' army, national service, but they're trying to stay away from the word conscription. So again, it goes back to Estonia, Sweden, and the UK have warned their respective nations that the prospect of large-scale war is on the horizon. So these are now countries, I think Germany as well, Germany, Estonia, Sweden, Holland, they've forgotten Holland, and England, have all now said to the public that they're going to have a war with Russia. And so now we are starting to prepare, just as we did before the Second World War with Germany, and we started a little bit late to prepare, and Neville Chamberlain, I believe, bought us a little bit of time, if I can get my history correct. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start preparing again. So now we're talking about all the difficulties. So Richard, who was Deputy Supreme Allied Commander for Europe, suggested that conscription might well be required because a large enough volunteer force would need a huge amount of effort and money, which is probably not there. So we don't have the means to get the conscription. So what we need is people to come forward and do it on their own. So Whitehall is believed to be looking at ways of training large amounts of volunteers quickly based on work done with Ukrainian troops. Now you understand why the Ukraine war, what the Ukraine war offers them. It offers them the ability to see how it's possible to quickly train civilians to fight. Okay? So that was the test, wasn't it? That's the test. British forces have trained 30,000 Ukrainians, okay, on British soil. So, one thing I wanted to say is that when Britain, apparently, I didn't know this, but when Britain votes to go to war, not all the politicians need to vote. 285 plus 272 does not equal all the politicians. We've got over 600 politicians. So I think that that's cowardice. I think it's cowardice that politicians don't need to vote in order to go to war. They can say, well, I didn't vote to and I don't vote against. I think as a politician, you need to make the decision. That's why you're there. Some figures, especially on Labour's left, want such votes to be compulsory before military action, something the government and the Labour leadership have no plans to introduce. You need all politicians have to vote. If you're going to conscript me, you've got to vote if we're going to war or not. You can't abstain and then go to war and say, well, you know, I wasn't for the war. Yeah, you weren't for the war because you didn't vote, because you're a coward. And so what they're saying is that England's not going to be the first people to be invaded, and so we're going to have a little bit of time if that happens. I don't think they'll do that. I just think they'll go. I don't think they'll warn people, because it happens in Ukraine, because Russia built up all the troops on the front line, which gave Ukraine a lot of time to organise, and I don't think that they're going to do that again. They can't do it again but they're basically telegraphing themselves, and which means there's going to be more injuries and more deaths on their parts. The army is currently at its smallest size since the Napoleonic War. So yeah, these are the figures. There was 100,000 in 2006, and today there's 74,000, and it's getting weaker and weaker. People don't want to go to war. We keep going to war. We don't want to go to war. The young people don't want to go to war. So Richard suggested that adult Brits, especially men, might have to be conscripted. Why men? Why? There we go. Sexist. There we go. Sexist. Especially men. Why don't you say especially women? Well, because women aren't capable. Well, you mean they're not equal? You mean we shouldn't have men cycling and swimming and boxing and female sports? You know, or we shouldn't have biological men that are now women. You know, that's a bit strange. So when it says especially men, well, what happens if you're a trans woman? Are you a man? It doesn't say biological man. So, here we go. Where are all the feminists now? Where are all the feminists now standing up and saying, no, we women want to join the men on the front line and be shot at, killed, maimed? We want our breasts blown off alongside the men having their testicles shattered with shrapnel. Yeah, I can see suddenly no one here is looking for equal rights all of a sudden. Where are all the social warriors? Where are all the armchair warriors? Where's everyone saying, no, men and women are equal? No, the front line, conscription, is men and women for the same amount of time with the same jobs. And what will happen? Everyone's going to go gay. Everyone's going to go trans. Everyone's going to go, no, I'm a woman, can't do that. Not going to pick the gun up, darling, I'm a woman. I don't know where to shoot. Suddenly I was a man, but now I'm a woman, now I can't map read. Sexist, you're saying that women can't map read? Yes, I am, because it's going to help me dodge the conscription, dodge the draft, anything. I'll use anything possible to do it. So, you know, why men? Why killing men again? Why every time there's a war the men have to die? I thought we were equal. Equal pay, equal rights. Why? Because you want to get rid of the men. You want to get rid of the men so you can control the society more easily. And who's going to be at home? Whilst all the brave men are there, who's at home? In the hotels. All the refugees are in the hotels, shagging the women. So they would be trained and expected to do short-term or compulsory peacetime service before returning to Civvy Street. Put the women in there as well. If women don't go, then women can't have equal pay. That's it. You can't have equal pay. You go to the back of the queues of the NHS, because if we're all going to come back with injuries from war, we get to go to the front. And when we go to work, we want extra money because we live shorter lives. Yeah, so we want to spend a little bit more, and we're going to have injuries, and we work harder, and we're more capable. Of course, we're more capable. It just said, especially men. So we must be more capable, right? So head of the army, is he telling the truth or is he a sexist? Go down here. What about volunteers? British efforts to train Ukrainian soldiers and civilians for combat against Russia could serve as the foundation of future efforts to do the same as the UK. So the Ukraine war was there to help train British people to fight Russians. Okay? We trained 30,000 Ukrainians. Our allies doing their bit. Countries closer to Russia than the UK are rearming. So everyone's starting to rearm. And this needs to be looked at, because there's a difference between saying we're going to war with Russia. We're going to war with Russia. Conscription, conscription, conscription. And there's a difference between going, oh, we're going to war with Russia. Here's a check for 11 billion. Could we please have some fighter aircraft, some tanks and some bombs, please? There's a big difference between talking and a big difference between paying. So Poland in 2022, that's only 1 year ago, 2 years ago, because we're in 2024 at the moment. In 2022, Poland signed a deal thought to be worth about 11 billion with South Korea to buy hundreds of tanks, heavy guns in the wake of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Someone's shitting themselves. Poland was behind the Iron Curtain. So Poland had a really bad time in under Russian control. Had a really bad time. So they got 1,000 tanks and K9 self-propelled howitzer, K9, I thought it was dogs, and an FA-50 fighter aircraft. Okay. So so over the last couple of days, so I've done like three videos on conscription, and because I keep seeing more and more articles talking about conscription, talking about sending people to war, talking about what we did in the past, saying it's good for us, it's good for the young men. We should conscript young men because the youth are AWOL. You know, and I can see where this is going. Am I anti-English? Am I anti-British? No, I'm not. Am I pro? No, I'm not. I think I'm pro-human. I'm pro values of the origin. I'm pro natural law. I'm pro objective ideas and ideologies. I'm not into this subjective stuff. I think the subjectiveness, like concerned with different cultures, it's just basically objectiveness expressing itself in different ways. Each country is an energy. It's an energy boundary. You've got borders which are energy boundaries. And so they usually change where there's like mountains or low lines or fertile, non-fertile or deserts. They're basically energy places. And then people go to those different energy places and they have energetical experiences related to the natural places around them. And nature has a spirit. You've got something called locus genii. Genii meaning genius, meaning spirit or genie, and locus, which is location. So it's the genie of the location, or spirit of the location. And your location informs you. I mean, it gives you experiences, gives you illnesses, gives you remedies, gives you food, gives you plants. Your surroundings form who you are. Mountain people are shorter because they can climb up mountains more easily. People in hotter countries are darker. People in colder countries are lighter. So even physically, you change according to your location, and you have your own gods and your own ideologies and your philosophies, and you have different animal totems. So, for instance, in Europe, our totem is more or less ravens, isn't it? Ravens and crows, which are from Woden. You know, he had one on each shoulder, talking to him in each ear, telling him special things. And then in the jungle, you've got cats, you know, you've got jaguars, or you've got anacondas. And those animals have representations. They represent, they're symbols for things. And they enter into the fabric of storytelling. And that storytelling informs people of their origins, of truth, of their culture. And that's passed down orally from tradition to tradition. In our culture, we have a different form of storytelling. It's now Disney. But what does Disney work for? It works for kiddie fiddling. Yeah, it's got all of that strange pea stuff in the stuff, hasn't it? You know, if you put it on pause, you can see dirty things. So our storytelling has gone. So the Bible is supposed to be our story now, isn't it? But it's not our culture. You know, how do we relate to it? You know, you're supposed to relate. And there's prophets in every place around. You know, we had Merlin, but we lost all of the information. We lost a lot of the information in order for us to go onto someone else's culture, which basically loosens our grip of strength. You know, it stops the connection, because the connection between us and nature is really what it is. Churches are supposed to be nature. You know, you're supposed to make connection to churches. You're supposed to make connection to nature. And then the church took over. So I'm not anti anything, but I am trying to say, look, guys, what are we fighting for? And who's got our minds, and who's programming our minds, and who's telling us what to do? And when you go to war, it's a giant sacrifice. It's a demonic, satanic blood sacrifice. It's called the theatre of war. It's a ceremony. You go in with your special symbols here of the rank and who you are and your name, and you know, you've got an animal with the tribe or the platoon that you're in, and you know, you've got a special job and you go and do that, and you know, you take orders and you do things at the same time, and everything's organized. It's just a mass ritual. It's a mass sacrifice where people die. And, you know, there's a lot of fear and hurt and anger, very bad energy, which is generated from this, which feeds, you know, other entities, doesn't it? I mean, it's demonic. So what this is it's just preparing for a blood sacrifice. It's a Babylonian thing that's coming along. If you want to look at it in those spiritual ways, you could look at it in psychological ways. But anyway, guys, thanks very much. Have a nice day.